While the last few people are signing in, I'd like to let you know a PDF copy of this presentation will be posted on the Sierra Club website, along with a backpacking gear list. At the end of this presentation, we'll place a link in the chat box to the site where you'll find these files. You'll also find there a schedule showing the future webinars that have been posted so far. So we have quite a few out there. You'll find a whole host of other things on the Sierra Club website as well, educational meetings, our newsletter, ways that you could take action, and of course, our outings events once those are restarted. All right. A few points about the Zoom platform. You will not be able to unmute yourself during this presentation, but we still want to hear from you. Your questions are encouraged. Please use the chat button to open a new box where you can type out your questions. You can also use the chat box if you have a technical issue that you need help with. We'll be monitoring the chat box throughout, and we'll also have live Q&A after the presentation as well, at about an hour from now. In the participants box, you will find a raise hand function. We'll be asking you to weigh in by raising your hand periodically, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. And then, although you do have the option to turn off your camera by clicking stop video, we would like to ask everyone to keep their cameras on during the meeting, since this will help keep everyone engaged. If you are uncomfortable with that, you can click the video button in the bottom left-hand corner and control your camera. When you click the participants box shown on the previous screen, you'll open the menu you see here on the right-hand side of your screen. You should be able to see the raise hand function here. The bottom of that menu box is the chat box where it says type message here. If you'd like to change how your name appears on Zoom, you can hover over your name and click rename. All right. A couple more details before we get started. We'll also be launching several polls as we go through the content of this webinar. Your answers are confidential. We only see the % of people who choose each answer. The polls will pop up on your screen, giving you an option to click one or more answers depending on the question. Ask for help in the chat box if the poll fails to appear on your screen or if you have other issues. Also, we recommend that you do not use full screen view so that you have easier access to the chat box and the raise hand icon. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded, but your video will not be. All right, so that brings us to your presenters for the day, and I'm going to hand it over for Nancy to introduce herself.
Thanks, Brian. So my name is Nancy Ball. I have been backpacking and leading trips since 2005 to places all over the place, so close to home as well as locations around the world. I'm one of the instructors for the backpacking school. And also this year, I launched my new business, planning and leading adventure travel trips. And my company name is Summit Truck and Travel. And I'll turn it over to Denise.
Thank you, Nancy. Hi, my name is Denise Tingle, also known as Pippi Longstocking is my trail name. And I've been camping and hiking, backpacking for 45 plus years. I am the hiking cheerleader for the Miami Group Sierra Club, along with an instructor for the backpacking school. In addition, I lead cycling rides and backpacking trips. My passion is backpacking and cycling, and I just love the outdoors. Brian?
Awesome, thanks Denise. I'm Brian Wolf, trail name Iceman. Probably know many of you guys, co-owner at Roads, Rivers, and Trails, so hopefully I've come across paths there. So fortunate enough to kind of be part of people's adventures every day, but for me it all started with my first backpacking trip, which was on the Appalachian Trail. So spiraled out of control from there, so hopefully we spread a little bit of that to all of you guys too.
I just have to add on Brian's behalf, his first backpacking adventure was not just on the AT, it was a through hike of the AT in winter.
It was a 170-day first trek. Thank you. It's a good specification. And then we, of course, should note behind the scenes, Nicole is the volunteer coordinator for our Miami group based in Southwest Ohio. Nicole regularly works on member and volunteer recruitment, communication techniques, outreach, and organizing the group committees on environmental activism. She has a passion for using nature as a natural healer in body care and wellness. In her free time, Nicole enjoys hiking, practicing sign language, swimming, and traveling. So thanks for helping, Nicole. All right, and then that brings us to the topic at hand. So welcome to PAX, the Backpackers U-Haul. In today's session, we'll cover what size pack do you need, and how do you fit it properly? How do you decide which features you want? And what are all those straps for? And why does it need a rain cover? So we're going to go over a lot. This class will help answer those questions and give you tips on how to adjust your pack to carry the load most comfortably. In follow-up sessions, we'll be doing a deep dive on each of the major categories like shelters, sleep systems, stoves, and food. So if you have a specific need or in the market for a new tent, for example, your sleep system isn't working well, you're ready to try something new in the backcountry cooking arena, and keep an eye out for those sessions. Like we said, we have a lot of different sessions coming out. Quick note on the pictures, they're all taken from our various trips. They're not labeled, but if you have a question about any one in particular, we can also answer that for you and let you know where it's at. I like to start a lot of presentations with this slide because I think it kind of just says a lot. We kind of already reviewed it, but my first trip was 170 days on the Appalachian Trail. So the most important takeaway from this presentation should be that backpacking is always a work in progress. When I first started, I had a 70-pound pack and was grossly underprepared. I could tell you that my confidence, along with my gear setup, became stronger with each mile. Any journey starts with a single step. Take that first step, no matter how imperfect it might be. All right, let's dig into the pack. There are several distinguishing features to a pack that we'll start by identifying. The first and often more obvious is the pack capacity. You'll find this noted in either cubic inches or liters, often printed on the pack. For example, a 60-liter pack is about 3,600 cubic inches. This identifies the total pack space that you have. If possible, when shopping for a new pack, bring in some of the items that you have and test pack them to get a better idea of the space that you need. Another option is renting or borrowing a few packs, and that's also going to give you a better idea. Other distinguishing features will be about how you organize items in your pack. Features like zippers, pouches, attachment points, straps, bladder compartment, rain cover, trekking pole lash points, and so on. While the organization is nice, all of these things add to the weight of the pack. A 60-liter pack can weigh anywhere between 2 and 6 pounds, depending on these features and the fabric that is used to make the pack. The picture 2 packs are a perfect example of this, as the Hyperlight on the left side, the white pack, is about 2 pounds, and the Osprey on the right is above 5 pounds. Other distinguishing features will be about how you organize the items in your pack. Forward. That brings us to what you cannot see from a pack. These are really the most important features, and each pack is built with different weight ratings or comfort ranges. While these are seldom printed on the tag, they're usually known either from somebody that can help you at the retailer or online underneath specifications of a pack. But it's important to know. You can see from the graphic here that packs of similar size can have a huge differential in how much weight they are built to carry. So what makes them different? Some packs carry more weight better because of the way that they are built. Distinguishing factors include the strength and presence of aluminum stays or framing that helps disperse the weight, the amount of adjustability to the fit or the thickness of the padding on the hip belt or harness is also going to play a factor. Each one of these things can make the weight you are carrying feel like less. So although the pack may be heavier itself, it might do a better job at carrying the weight for you. Now we come to what I usually regard as the most important factor of your backpacks. We're going to look at the custom fit of backpacks. Buying a backpack without knowing your torso size is like buying a shoe without knowing your shoe size. While most packs can be adjusted, to some extent, it may be a painful learning experience to find out how and where you need to adjust it to. Pack sizing starts with a torso height measurement. This can be done with a friend at home or at a local outdoor retailer. Starting from your hips, or more appropriately, the iliac crest, you measure up to the base of your neck or your C7 vertebrae. From here, we can see your torso height, and we can help select the right pack and adjust it to your exact torso height. This assures that you're carrying the weight in the right spots. Other size options can include interchangeable hip belt or harness, typically found on heavier carrying packs or those with a higher weight capacity. This also really helps with an individual that might not be exactly proportional, somebody that might have a small torso but would be in need of a large hip belt or a large harness to fit correctly. So those packs really help. It's also important to note that most manufacturers make women-specific packs that are shaped differently at the hips and chest as well. So often they'll come in different torso sizes, but they will also have a slimmer padding around the harness and a different curvature to the hip belt. All right, so let's go ahead, because I passed it up on the first go round. Denise, if we can launch poll 1 before we take some questions and catch up on that one. So, which features are important to you when buying a pack? You could check all that apply.
Denise, I think you need to launch that poll.
It is launched, Nancy.
Oh, okay. Sorry, because I can't see it.
We're seeing it spread out pretty far, but it looked like I had a convincing argument for fit. Everybody's unanimous on that, at least. And we got a lot of, obviously, you have to take all of these factors in consideration. You're looking at your pack weight and cost. But the only 9 for 9 is on fit. Awesome. Well done, guys. You can go ahead and, yeah, share the results there. So that was a lot, right? All at once. What questions do we have? Let's catch everybody up.
So Brian, right now we don't have any questions in the chat box, but I would encourage everyone, if you do have a question right now, please, we'll pause here for just a minute and give you a chance to type it into the chat box. We'll just wait a few seconds to see if anybody has anything, and if not, we'll move on. But if more questions occur to you that you don't think of right now and you think of them 5 minutes from now, put them in the chat box as they occur to you, and we'll be sure to address them when we get to the next question break.
I'll take the time for a little anecdote then on the pack fitting. You know, it's one of the things that we come across a lot on trail, and find somebody that didn't have a proper fitting or is having some sort of issues. And so one of those things, if the weight doesn't hold on the hips and it's constantly falling off the hips, it can actually pinch on the top of the shoulders, and with your arms down especially, you know, can have your fingers going numb or your hands going numb because there's too much weight on the shoulders. And so that's one of the big things that we've seen out on trail.
So Brian, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions right now. So should we just go ahead and
Sure.
we'll start on the section about how much your pack should weigh. So before I start talking about that and giving you some guidelines or rules of thumb related to that, let's do another poll right now. Denise, if you could launch the second poll. And for some reason, I can't see the polls on my screen, so you'll have to tell me when you're doing it. But the question on the poll is going to be, what's your average pack weight, or what do you think an ideal pack weight should be for a 3-day trip, whether you've done one or not? Give it your best guess of what you think it ought to be, and you got 4 choices there to pick from. Maybe Denise, just give them about another 5-6 seconds to finish up.
Yep.
Okay.
We're at about 70%. So
Okay, cool.
if you all want to finish voting there, I'll go ahead and share the results then.
And then Denise, when you do share them, if you would tell me what it says, because I can't see them.
Okay. I was going to give another. Okay.
That's cool. We got time.
All right.
You're good.
Okay, we have, what is your ideal pack weight for a 3-day trip? 20 to 30 pounds, 2 said 29%, 30 to 40, we have 71%, 40 to 50, 0, and over 50, 0. So majority was 30 to 40.
Okay, so you all are backpackers after my heart. Those heavy packs are not much fun. I've done it before. So there's Brian, rather, if you would go ahead and advance the slide for me. There's a general rule of thumb. It used to be that the recommendation was your pack should be no heavier than 1/3 of your body weight. The current rule of thumb that people more typically go by is that it should be no more than 20% of your body weight. You see a picture of, what's her name, Reese Witherspoon in the movie Wild. Maybe you saw that. It cracked me up. When I read the book, she named her backpack the Monster, and you can see how big it is. She never did say in the book how much it actually weighed, but it must be about an 80-pound pack the way she describes the effort it took to even pick it up. That's clearly too much weight, and I'm sure it's way more than 1/3 of her body weight, let alone 20%. So just a couple things about weight while we're at this point, because you may hear people talk about lightweight and ultralight, just to give you a sort of an understanding of that. So lightweight is roughly considered to be anything less than 20 pounds base weight, and ultralight would be like less than 10 pounds base weight. The base weight doesn't have everything in it. It has everything but your consumables. So that means there's no food, water, or fuel, which obviously add a fair amount to the weight of your pack. The base weight is excluding those things. So before we talk farther, we're going to do another poll here. So Denise, never mind, no, we're not. We're done with that poll. Forget that. Go ahead and move on to the next slide. Sorry about that. So last week when Barry led us on a discussion, we reviewed the importance of using a pack checklist before you go off on any trip. And that's really important to do. So you don't want to cut out things that really are essential or related to safety issues. The better way to lighten up your pack and get it down to a reasonable weight is by not putting in redundant items and not putting in, like those apocalyptic type survival knives and heavy things that just are if the world were to end while you're out there, you might need them. So extra tools, knives, batteries, changes of clothes, those are all things that typically don't really need to be in your pack, that you're going to end up not using them. When I first started backpacking, I packed as if I were car camping. I really wanted like all the comforts of home. And I think my pack initially weighed 48 pounds, and that was awful. Once I learned the 1/3 rule, 1/3 of my body weight, I did get it down to close to 40 pounds, and it was still pretty awful. So some of the things I started thinking about were, first of all, when I'm backpacking, for my style, for what I do, I usually spend more time hiking on the trail than I actually do in camp. I tend to be more about, getting from this point to that point, making long distance, hiking lots of hours. So I'm spending more time there. That means I'm going to be, if most of my time is going to be on the trail versus in camp, I want my trail time to be the most comfortable. So that meant I needed to start figuring how to get my pack lighter. And in some cases that meant eliminating things that maybe would have made camp a lot more cushy, but I wasn't really spending enough time there to make it worth that. But there were other ways too. So like I switched to a small inflatable pillow. I started counting calories and actually measuring my food so that I was only carrying the food I truly needed and was gonna eat on the trip. I switched over to a jet boil stove, which was a really compact, lightweight way of cooking my food. I reduced the amount of toiletries I carried with me. Like one thing I figured out is deodorant is kind of useless. And there are other things in my toiletry kit that I just wasn't using or really didn't need to use. And even the things I do take, now instead of taking the container of them or the package or whatever, I get little tiny containers and I put in just the amount that I'm going to need for my trip. So I'm not carrying any extra weight in those things. I also trimmed my first aid kit down. It was pretty much set for the apocalyptic event when I first started doing all this stuff. And I cut way back on the clothes that I take with me. Other things like fewer plastic bags inside of my pack. I line the whole thing with one big 55-gallon garbage bag instead. And that way I don't have the weight of all those plastic bags that add up. All the extra carabiners and extra ropes, all those things. And those all made a difference of pounds. My base weight now is down to 17 pounds, and I can pack for a 4 or 5 day backpacking trip and still be under 30 pounds. And the truth is I don't miss any of the things that I took out of that pack. Then one last tip for you on this section, excuse me, about packing light is come into RRT for a shakedown. One of the great options that they offer, and it's free of charge, is that they'll go through your pack with you to make sure you have everything that you need in order to travel safely, to really take care of what you actually need while you're on out in the backcountry, but also help you see where you might have some things that are redundant or where you could go with a smaller load or less material, like the example of, you know, trimming down the amount of stuff you put in your toiletry kit. In the beginning, it really is about counting pounds versus ounces, and it adds up. So after you have figured out what's going to go in your pack, what you're going to take with you, the next thing to talk about or think about is the weight distribution in your pack itself. So it's important to get it right, because if you don't, a number of things are going to happen. If you've got too much weight to the back, it's going to be pulling, the pack will be pulling back on your shoulders all the time. If it's not sitting on your hips right, you'll have weight in the wrong places. You'll end up getting sores and bruises. You could also end up even just being off balance because of it. So it really is important to pack it correctly. Generally, putting your sleeping bag and other squishy, fairly lightweight things down in the bottom of your pack is a good place to start. Think about what will be the last things that you need to pull out at night. So maybe your sleeping clothes go down there with your sleeping bag. And then your heaviest items want to be up against your back and below your shoulder blades. So you can see the red section in the illustration there on the left. So that might be things like, you know, your hydration pack is going to be there, maybe your food bag will be there. And then other things that are not real heavy, but not necessarily super light, you can sort of pack around that. If you look at the orange section in the illustration, that would represent those things. And then the very lightest things, plus the things that you need quick access to, you want to have up on top. So that would be things like your gloves and your lunch and first aid kit. Just a couple of things that I do, and you'll figure out how to pack your own pack so you know where everything is and you're able to access it when you need it. But some of the things that I do is, depending on which pack I'm carrying, one of my packs has a separate compartment in the bottom that I can access for the zipper from the outside and the bottom. And I'll stick my 10 Essentials emergency bag down there, where the weight's down in the bottom of the bag, and I have easy access to it without having to dig down through my stuff. Things that I can reach for all the time, like my bandana, my water bottle, my camera or my cell phone, those things I end up putting in pouches or against little straps on the outside of the pack so that I have easy access to them while I'm walking along. Let me go on to the next slide then. Oh, one more word about this before we do start talking. Sorry, after I told you to change, Ryan. We'll go back 1 second. Sorry. One more thing to mention is that after you have packed, excuse me, sorry about tickle in my throat. After you've packed everything in that backpack, be sure to tighten up all the compression straps, because having everything squished in nice and compact will also help you carry the load and help keep things kind of from shifting around on you and throwing you off balance. Okay, now we can go ahead, Brian. So you have everything in the pack, and now the next step is to put it on your back and start adjusting all those straps. And you're going to do this from the bottom up. So the first thing you want to do is to attach the hip belt, buckle the hip belt. And you'll see the illustration on the right. This woman is sort of leaning forward. That's a good way to do it, because then it puts the weight against your full back, and you can sort of adjust it up and down. You want it so that the hip belt is going to be straddling the top of your hip bone. So your iliac crest would be centered right in the middle of that, that hip belt. And then after you have it on and centered right, you want to snug it up good and tight, because it's going to hold 80% of the weight of the pack. So it needs to be tightened up enough it's not going to slide down around your butt, right? After you've got the hip belt snugged up, then you're going to move up to the shoulder straps, and you'll be pulling straight down from those. And what that's going to do is pull the pack closer into your back and snug it against you. Again, you want things kind of compressed in, so it's not swinging around and, you know, causing you to have balance issues. The next part is to fasten the sternum strap, which is going to fall about 1 inch below your collarbones. And after you buckle it, you'll snug it a little bit too, which will help kind of center the load and pull a little bit of the stress off of your shoulders. And then the last step is to tighten up the load lifters. And sometimes it's hard to get those on your own, because you have to reach up there and find them blind and pull them to adjust them. So you might need somebody to help you with them, especially if you're a beginner backpack. But you want them pulled up so that they end up being at about a 45-degree angle. And what that does, again, is it helps pull the weight of the pack in closer to your back, which is going to help you carry the load comfortably as well as have better balance. Now we can go on to the next slide. So as you're hiking, you're going to notice that things have to be adjusted constantly. So your posture changes. If you're hiking uphill, you're going to be leaning forward. If you're hiking downhill, you're going to be leaning backwards. Things are going to loosen up a little bit. They're going to shift around pretty soon. That hip belt isn't right on top of your hips anymore. So you're going to be making adjustments constantly the whole time that you're hiking. And that's normal, it's expected, and it's really what you should do to make sure that everything is still staying centered in the way that it should be for you to carry it the easiest. Once you get to camp at night, one of the first things to do when you start unloading is unloosen all of those compression straps that you tightened up, so that it's easier for you to get things out. There's no reason to struggle with that. Another recommendation is pay attention to what other people are doing, especially if you're hiking with a group. Almost everything I've learned about backpacking, I've learned from watching people around me when they were kind enough to take me out on trips and let me learn from them. So you can learn a lot about all this stuff by watching what your friends are doing, or even people you meet on the trail. We'll call them new friends. I think we're ready to go on to the next slide. And let's see, we actually are going to give you guys a chance to answer some questions here in a group. So we're going to do breakout rooms, and I want to ask for some forgiveness on the front end of this, because this will be the first time that we've tried to do the breakout rooms live, and we think we know how to do it, but we will see if it works the way we think it will. So we're going to do a quick exercise. Actually, if you go ahead and advance the slide there, Brian, to the.
I am making the room, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to. Let's see.
Well, that's okay. I'll just tell you what it would say if we could see it.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, here we go. For the next 10 minutes, we'll be assigning you to a breakout room. What we want you to do is think about the things that are that you would have in your pack, backpacking gear that you would have with you. And as a group, discuss ways that you could use those items so that you're thinking of, say, 2 or 3 or even more ways of using each of the things that you pack. The reason for talking about this is we said you want to eliminate redundant items. So for example, in this case here is giving a bandana as an example. A bandana can serve as a hat. It can serve as a triangular bandage. It can serve as a sling. It can serve to strain out, be the first filter, if you will, of filthy water. You do not have to carry 4 different things. You can carry one bandana to serve all of those purposes. Thinking it that way will help you tremendously in lightening the load that you carry in your backpack. So how are we doing in the rooms? Are we about ready with them?
I think we're all ready. We'll
Okay.
we'll launch the rooms and we'll see what
Okay.
happens.
With
All right.
luck, we'll see you in a minute.
Well, I tell you what, that was fun. Hopefully everyone, it looks like everyone's on mute, so have to unmute yourself. Yeah, Nancy, Denise, Barry, anybody else. I'd love to hear kind of what we came up with.
I'll go first. It was pretty cool. So our group had several really good ideas. One was around, the first one came up as Josh thought about using a stuff sack as a pillow. And then after thinking about it some more, we thought it could also be used to help you do a bear hang. If you need something with some weight, you put a rock in the bottom of your stuff sack and use it on the end of the rope to make it easier to get it over a limb. Let's see, I think we had another thing for the stuff sack and I've forgotten what it was now. Well, I guess the actual purpose of it, which is to stuff things in it. I'll just share that one so that other people get a chance as well. So I make sure I don't steal somebody else's that they're going to talk about.
Nancy, we had the same, a few of the same that you did. Another one was tent stakes, to use them like if needed to dig a hole for something, or if you're not using your tent, you can use your tent stake for a pooper scooper. The other was rain pants for insulation.
Very good.
Brian?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and again, we had some like ideas. Using a jacket and stuffing it up as a pillow is a very popular multi-use item. Just getting the most out of it and cutting something off the list. Talked about the same, using the tent stakes to dig a hole with, and also just not having too much repetition cordage. You know, having if we want extra guy line cord and extra shoelaces and extra bear hang cord, that could all be the same cord, and we can kind of just, you know, use it in different ways, whatever's most important at the time.
Did you lead a group too, Barry?
Yeah, sorry, I got booted off there for a second, but I'm back now. So we had Teresa, Jim, Nicole, and myself, and sorry if I didn't catch all the ones that you guys gave, so I don't know if any of these are redundant, but we talked about trekking poles that could be used as a splint, obviously a tent or tarp pole, just as a general reach up and grab things like a bear bag or something. We talked about using a cooking pot as a cup, so you don't have 2 of those things, use the same thing, and even could use it as a shovel, although we weren't quite sure we'd want to actually use it as a shovel. Pants we talked about, and I think I forget who it was who brought it up, but they pointed out that you can actually use pants as a life preserver. If you're ever taken a life-saving class, you can do that. Talked about socks that you could use as a glove. You can probably more popular item would be to use it as a hot water bottle container. If you're doing a cold camping, heat up your water and slide it in there. But you could also use it as a filter. And then sleeping pads as a sit-upon and a splint. So those
that's a bunch.
Yep.
So we had a couple more things in our group too, so I'll go ahead and touch on those.
Good group.
One of them was a space blanket, which could be used as, besides wrapping it around you for warmth if you had some kind of a heat emergency or cold emergency. But the shiny side could be used as a signal. You could use it as a tarp. You could use it to put over your tent if you had a tear or something had damaged your tent and you had a leak. You could even, if you needed to, use it to tie on a splint, to tie up a splint, which I thought that was pretty creative. And then Quinn, who was in by phone and we lost her, she fell off at some point. I don't know if she got back on yet or not, but she talked about that she brings her food in a small plastic bag and then that plastic bag becomes her trash bag, so she doesn't have to carry a separate trash bag. And then also we talked about that if the plastic bag of that sort can be used to carry water or even to measure water. If you know you need a half a cup, you can pre-measure ahead of time to know where that is on your plastic bag. And I think those were I think that was the rest of what we talked about without getting redundant. So very good. So
Those are great
cool.
ideas. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, super good ideas. Some things
Yeah,
I hadn't thought of. So yeah, there we go. I was going to say, if you go one more slide there, Brian, and click it again, you'll see some other ideas about ways that some standard items that would be in your backpack might be used. A poncho could be used as a pack cover or a sit-upon. The space blanket, we talked about that. Trekking poles. A garbage bag can be used as a poncho or a sit-upon. I've actually used the garbage bag as my rain jacket in a pinch when my waterproofing failed and I thought I was going to freeze to death. You can also like stuff a garbage bag full of leaves and it becomes a good insulator between you and the ground. If you don't, for something, say something happens to your sleeping pad, like maybe you get a hole in your air pad, you could use your garbage bag full of leaves to substitute. Talked about ropes. Carabiners do lots of things, clipping various things on your pack. You can also use it as part of your bear hang process. We actually usually do a 2-rope bear hang system where we use a carabiner as a pulley. The rope goes through the carabiner and is up near the branch, and the rope pull slides through the carabiner. Hard to explain with a little bitty video this big, but anyway, it works. Oh yeah, we talked about a water bottle being good for hot water to warm up your feet. I think Barry touched on that. So that was really good.
Awesome. Guys, we had one thought. Did any of the have any of the other instructors used their backpack in conjunction with a shorter 1/2 or 3/4 sleeping pad?
I have not.
No, never tried that one.
Yeah.
Style. Yep.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Hey, Nancy, one I don't recall anyone mentioning was, but we did in our group the duct tape. And as I mentioned in my group that there was somebody I was hiking with and their sole came off the bottom of their shoe, was coming off, and they just basically duct taped their whole shoe. And it worked.
Yep, I've seen that. It looks like Melinda, I'm sorry that we couldn't hear you. It says she doesn't have her microphone. We thought maybe you were, we couldn't tell if you were there or not. So I just now saw your text. Good, okay, so, so there are a couple comments in there in our chat box, but I don't see any questions. You guys have another chance here that you can throw some stuff out at us before we move on. We're actually, we're getting very close to the end. We're going to have one more poll. Brian's got a little bit more to talk about. Then we're going to have one more poll. And then at the very end, we're going to have an opportunity for live questions. So you can either type your questions in the chat box now, or if you have something that you'd like to ask live, we'll do that at the very end of all this. So you want to go ahead, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. This is really one of the last really content slides, and maybe this is a great opportunity for some questions from you all, so type away. But there's a lot of different reputable pack manufacturers. Most of them offer, different lifetime warranties. A lot of them offer in-house repairs. All these guys have a good amount of adjustability and custom fits, and some competitive options for each style that they all make. So a lot of the time it's no different than shoes. They're going to adjust differently, and they're going to fit differently. So trying on several packs will give you a better idea of what you do or do not like. Again, if you have the opportunity to either rent those and actually take them out for a trip, or not, would be all the better, or borrow them and take them out for a trip. But yeah, each company is going to have a different feature set. And in general, for your multi-day packs, you're generally looking at $150 to above $300 from most of these brands. And like I said, if you're not ready to invest in one, RRT rents, I believe REI rents as well. But all reputable brands up here. These are just some of the bigger ones, and from ultralight to just the big brand name ones. But this is where we usually get a lot of questions in store and just the difference or anything like that. So if you guys have anything for me here, I am more than happy to answer. Well, we haven't even raised our hands at all. Maybe we
I
can get.
know.
Yeah, I have a question for everyone, Nancy, and they could raise their hands. How many
Okay.
people have actually been fitted for a pack that is on our call?
Good question, Denise. Let's show of
That is a good
hands for
question.
that.
Nobody.
Oh, you guys have to get a fit. Come on by. It's so much
Yeah.
fun. When you're trying on a backpack, it's very important. Like, again, we talked about fit, but to have somebody to go through adjustments, but also to have some weight in the pack, not to make it feel heavy, but just so that we can see and truly envision if it is or is not a good fit. Super important.
So Brian, we have a question from Quinn. Quinn, I'm glad you got back on. Looked like we lost you during the room breakout. So glad you made your way back. She says she has an Osprey backpack that was fitted by another store, REI, but she got a bruise on her hip bone after a long trip. She's asking if it was due to bad fitting or wrong size. What was your thinking be about that, Brian?
Quinn, good question. You're definitely welcome to bring it by and we can resize you and to kind of see if it's a size thing. There are some other things that can contribute, and I'm guessing some of the other instructors have had personal experiences too, but including even what pants you're wearing or what belt you're wearing, and the hip belt has to kind of come across something more seamless and more flat, and that can help a lot. But if you're not used to wearing a pack either, if you kind of put it on and went for a multi-day trip, especially if it was too much weight, your body just might not be used to kind of wearing it and can rub a little bit more raw. You can kind of treat it like you would treat blisters on your feet and just try to pad it out before it becomes a serious problem. So I've been on trips with friends where we kind of duct tape their hips just to kind of stop from any movement of the hip belt and rubbing therein. So hopefully that helps to get a better idea. You're definitely welcome to come by and we can see if there might be something else to it.
I can tell you that I've gotten bruises on my hips before because I had a belt on my pants that was sitting wrong underneath of my hip belt. So that was a good point, Brian. So Jacob is asking, what's the most durable pack from this list?
That's most durable is probably something from Mystery Ranch. They're going to use just kind of a heavier denier. They're more of an old school style pack company. The designer is back from like Dana Designs, which is just like one of like their original pack design companies. They're not trying to be ultra light. They actually come from like a military and first responder rescue background. And so their packs are pretty burly, unapologetically just durable, beefy. I really love them, especially for their day packs. Are fantastic.
So we have some experience with Kelties being pretty durable as well, but again, they're also heavy. The heavier the material, the heavier the pack is. My old Keltie weighed 7 pounds empty.
Right.
Yeah. Let's
Brian,
see.
Becky had a question. I have an old Melty aluminum frame pack. What is an advantage of the newer no frame ones?
Sure, good question. So most all pack companies have kind of moved towards the internal frame packs as opposed to the external frames. And a lot of the idea is just keeping the weight closer to your back. The closer it is to your back, the less that it could feel or less weight you will feel. And they've been able to kind of engineer that so that you still get some airflow and things like that as well. But also for how you pack, it's more commonplace now to get a pack that you can fit everything inside of. So even though packs have lots of lash points and things on the outside, we recommend to get a pack that you could fit everything in, everything that you're carrying more or less inside of. That ability to compress it, pull it closer to your body, closer to your back, versus things hanging off that might be bouncing or just be weight further away from your body, is just going to be a more modern preference.
So I think we have time for, there's a couple more questions in here. So we'll do at least one more right now, and then maybe we'll finish up and open up the live question part to catch the rest of them. So Nicole is asking, what if you have an old soft shell pack that was fit to you when you were a smaller size? She's talking about her husband when he was a smaller size. Would you recommend a new pack or just resize?
Good question. Oh, man, this is great questions today. You know, always try for a resize. You know, just going to depend on that pack and how adjustable it is. You know, we talked earlier even about some packs where we could swap out the hip belts or harnesses. So, you know, as a person grows, no matter which way they're growing, that's not necessarily a problem with those packs, but unfortunately, that's not going to be all packs. So if the pack could be sized further, be it torso range or expanded as far as hip belt or harness range, then I'd say let's go for it. Let's try it. It's gonna need to be looked at, I guess.
Sounds like another case where they need to bring it into RRT and let you guys take a look at it.
We're gonna be so busy tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quinn has another question, but we probably, Quinn, if you can hang in there, we'll go for some live questions in just a couple more slides. Do you want to go ahead, Brian?
Sure. Yep. All right. Sorry, catch up here. All right. So that concludes the presentation, but hang around for a few more minutes. We want to know how we did. We hope you found a few ideas that you could use to enjoy future backpacking trips. We have one more poll that was just launched for you here that will help us know how well we did during the presentation. So your honest feedback is appreciated.
While you're answering that last poll, I'll let you know that I'm putting links to a couple of pages on the Sierra Club website in the chat box. These are the links that will take you to a page that has the PowerPoint from this presentation in the PDF format for you, and also a link that will take you to the schedule that shows you the rest of the presentations that we have planned. And then lastly, actually the first one in there, if you liked what you saw today, you know, the Sierra Club Outings Committee is committed to helping everybody explore, enjoy, and protect the planet. And if you liked what you saw today and you're interested in supporting that work, there is a button in there where you can donate directly to the Miami group of the Sierra Club, which is our local Cincinnati-Dayton area chapter. And we'd sure love for you to join us that way. And let's see. I guess that's it. So I think I mentioned everything that's going to be out there. I think we're good with all that. So Brian, if
Awesome.
you want to go ahead with the next
slide there.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, and that brings us to your sponsors for today. This presentation has been brought to you by Roads, Rivers, and Trails, our local independently owned outdoor outfitter in Milford, Ohio, by Miami Group Sierra Club, a part of the country's largest grassroots environmental movement, and by Summit Trek and Travel, your connection for adventure travel. As we mentioned, the link in the chat box will take you to a site with a schedule of future webinars. You can also email Nancy at summittrektravel@yahoo.com if you'd like to be added to the mailing list. And then we can kind of resume Q&A, I think.
Yeah, so anybody who has to leave us now, we certainly understand. We hope you got your questions answered, but you can reach out to us at any time. And anyone who wants to stick around a little bit longer, will I see at least one more question popped up in there that we can address now. So, and it's been great to be with you all. So those of you, if you have to go, I hope to see you again. For everybody else, I see this next question from Quinn. She was asking about, for a long trip, around 220 miles, should I trade comfort for lightweight in the pack? And I don't mind taking a stab at that one. I've only done one trip in that range. Actually, it was supposed to be a 200-mile trip, but I ended up with a stress fracture and had to stop at mile 168. Denise was on that trip, and she got to go on a little further, but I was sitting behind with a broken bone in my foot. And I think, Quinn, that this is, for everybody, this is, again, it's a personal preference. For me, the more I've backpacked, and especially on long distance packs, I spend a lot of time hiking. And so for me, that's where I want to focus on being the most comfortable. It's the time I'm actually hiking on the trail. That means I want my pack as light as I can get it without sacrificing anything that would, you know, be a safety, anything that would put me at risk safety wise. So I always make sure I have weather gear, that I have first aid kit, that I have repair kits, all those basic things. But I get my pack weight down as light as I can within that. So maybe sort of a compromise between the two things. I would never sacrifice safety for the sake of a lighter pack, though. What would you guys say to that, to Quinn's question?
I think, you know, the lighter packs, Nancy, that you go to, right, you're giving up some comfort. So until you really try it out, and I think our RT rents them, don't you, Brian? You can rent a pack.
Absolutely.
So I went to a lighter pack, but last year, and even though during that 200-mile trail that we did on the AT, I was fine with my pack, and now I got a lighter pack. Did I give up a lot of comfort? Actually not, and it is lighter. So I think it just depends on what comfort you're willing to give up, because a lot of the lighter ones too don't have the thick hip belts like some of the others. So, you know, or the rushy straps. So it's just a matter of what you can work with, and sometimes you don't know until you really try them.
Denise, you bring up another really good point too. So you don't want to go just lighter on the pack itself. You need to make sure that what you're putting in the pack doesn't weigh as much too, because
Right.
if you put too much weight in a pack that was rated for something lighter, it's not going to be comfortable. You're going to have places where it hurts your hips or it hurts your shoulders. It's just not going to. They're not made to carry heavy weight. So you have to go down proportionately.
Right. There's another question from Anne, and she's confused by all the straps on the pack and wondering where the best place is to attach things like my trekking poles to the pack. Brian?
Sure, yeah, and that's why we wanted to focus on some of the straps today, because it's one of the first things that is overwhelming when you see it. Just looks like an endless amount of straps coming off the pack. And so just kind of, you'll typically have at least 2 sets on each side, and that's your compression. And then of course we went through like the ladder of adjustments to the pack, being from the hip belt to under the arms and over the shoulders and the sternum strap. And so many are for fit, you know, the front 4 for fit, and then you have some across the side and the back that are really for the compression there. As far as the trekking poles, there are, like, Osprey's really good at including trekking pole holders on their packs. Otherwise, you'll find a lot of people kind of stash them in the side of the pack where the drink pocket would be, and alongside the compression there is going to be pretty common. Something on the outside so they're easier to get to, and they're not going to be super easy to pack.
Cool.
I see that. Go ahead, Nancy.
Teresa's asking, is it better, when backpacking, is it better to have pants without a belt so that you don't have friction at the hips? So I have had that issue, but I found that it's really just a matter of me getting everything situated right. When I tighten up my my hip belt, if I make sure that I have pulled my pants belt up so that it's not at a point where the hip belt is going to be pressing on it, then I'm fine. Actually, when I don't wear a belt, my pants tend to fall down, and that's not very comfortable either.
Right. Yeah, and something
unless you hike in a skirt, Nancy.
Yeah, which I still like to do. Yeah.
You're also moving around a lot. You're lifting, you know, obviously lifting your legs a lot, and the pack is going to press on you a little bit differently. So I have found a really light webbing belt, and actually like a webbing with even like a little bit of spandex. There's a company called Arcade Belts. And so it moves with you, but still holds up your pants enough. And then it's flat enough that it shouldn't create any sort of hip belt issues.
Cool. We had a lot of really good questions tonight.
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah,
back to see if
appreciate
we missed any. If you had a question and we missed it, would you put it in the chat box again, please? I'll give you a minute to do that just to be sure. Actually, I just want to say I really appreciate the questions, because this is a lot more fun to do when it's sort of interactive and we have a little bit of back and forth. That makes it a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing I would suggest or would ask you to do is, if you have interest in a particular topic for the future, leave us a note in the chat box about that too, please, so that we can try to be sure we work it into the future webinars that we have planned.
And next week is sleeping bags, the soft tacos of the bear world. So that would be fun.
I saw where there were like two comments about they hope to get out backpacking this summer or sometime soon.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quinn just asked if the store swaps out hip belts. Quinn, it depends on what pack you have. We do have some Gregory and Osprey hip belts, including some like old past seasons. So if the pack's 5 to 10 years old, it'd be different. So it has to be compatible. So we'll have to take a look at if we have a hip belt that would fit your pack. But we do have a collection of hip belts from the past 10 years. So
I see a message from Nicole that she just turned on, gave everybody the ability to unmute themselves. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask out loud, you are able to do that now. Oh. Becky says, looking for lightweight food options. That's going to be covered in one of our upcoming webinars, Becky. Don't remember the date of that one. It's probably a month or more away, but it is on the schedule. So we got you covered.
And I wanted to add, Nancy, that I found that, you'll start with one pack. And as you use it for several years, you end up buying another pack usually. So I'm on my third pack. My first one obviously was not the right size for me. The second one was great. It was an Osprey and it fit me great, but I was just looking for something lighter since I reduced my weight anyway. So that's how I ended up with my current one. And I guarantee you'll end up with more than one pack.
Yeah.
Over time, I mean.
Yeah, I'm on my fourth pack. So a couple other questions in there. Jacob Rasmussen says he's new to Ohio, new to Northwest Ohio. Okay, what are some weekend backpacking trips that you recommend? I think Barry should help weigh in on this, even though he's been real quiet.
Honestly, I don't do a lot of backpacking in Ohio, so some other folks might be more help with that. The closest places that most people go, Red River Gorge down in Kentucky. I mean, that's not a far drive. And then down to Big South Fork at the southern Kentucky, Tennessee border there, another beautiful area. Within Ohio, I don't know, Denise, where are some of the trips that we've gone in Ohio?
In Ohio?
Zaleski is one.
Zaleski is one.
And Shawnee is another one.
Yep.
And Eastgate, or East Fork actually has a, And then there's the Dayton one that has a 28-mile loop in Dayton.
The Germantown Metro Parks.
Yes.
Is that the right name? Wildcat Hollow. That's a good one, Becky.
Yeah. Another one, is Big South Fork, which is in Kentucky and part of Tennessee, and it's only a 3-hour drive to some of it, Barry.
Yep.
You might also not be all that far from Hoosier in Indiana.
Right. Yeah. So there's a few that we could throw out to you. Wildcat Hollow is a great beginner backpack loop. And the Sierra Club, we do backpacking trips. Barry, do you want to touch on that as far as?
So I was going to say in general, for those who aren't familiar with Meetup, the website where groups post, Sierra Club Outings has a Meetup site, but so do other groups like Cincinnati Backpackers. And one thing I like to do is I just sign up as a member of those groups just so I get the notification of the trips, even if I don't go on the trip with the group, which is a fun thing to do as well. I at least find ideas of places to go. I actually belong to a meetup group in Asheville, North Carolina, just to find out about trips in North Carolina. So that's one good way to find out where other people are going. And, you know, if you want to join a group, it's great for that.
So Nicole just put a link in the chat box to our meetup site, the Sierra Club Outings meetup site. If you're not already a member on there, that would be a great thing. We'd love to have you join us, and then you'll get notification as trips get posted. And if I back up a little bit, Melinda asked a question about backpacking with pets and asking if we could cover that on a future webinar. That might be something we'll have to recruit another presenter who has experience with that, because none of us backpack with pets that I know of.
We got Neil. We could
yeah,
Neil.
We can pull Neil in on that. He has 3 dogs that he takes with him. So we will work on that, Melinda, and try to get it included in a future webinar. Let's see. 2 new. Oh, she said great. You're welcome. Okay. I think we might have answered all the questions now.
Yeah, this was a great interaction here.
Yeah, we really appreciate your participation this way. So Brian already said next Thursday, same time, same place. The registration link is on Meetup. It's on the Sierra Club website. It's in the link that I put on the chat earlier. It's also on all of our Facebook pages. So if you go out to that link and download the PDF copy of this presentation, you'll have the links to the Facebook pages and all of that. So it was good to be with you all. Thank you so much for being here and taking part in this.